This is Gardening Through the Season. I'm David Nagel, Professor of Horticulture at Mississippi State University. And it's early April. It's just about time to be putting tomatoes in the garden. But first I want to show you one of the new twists we have in gardening, which is how to get those old heirloom varieties into your garden with their poor disease resistance. And this is an idea, it's not a new idea, but it's catching fire. We're grafting the old heirloom tomato onto the rootstock of a new modern variety that has disease resistance. What you see here is called pineapple grafted onto sunleaper, and the little plastic bottle is there to keep the humidity up because you notice we removed almost all the leaves off of the top. I'm going to take that off and show you. This little clip holds it together. Notice the high tech. And you can see this graft where we've just taken and split the rootstock of the modern variety and taken the top, cut it into a wedge, put it in there, and put the clip on to hold them together. This one's just about ready to come out of the bottle. This graft has taken. That's all there is to it. You can do this at home with a razor blade. Just make sure the razor blade is clean. And after it's well established, you can plant it just like any other tomato. Now we're going to talk about different ways we support tomatoes. The reason we support tomatoes is if you let them sprawl on the ground, the fungi that naturally live in the soil will eat your tomato and you won't get anything. So that's all we're doing, is we're holding those tomato fruits off the ground. The easiest way, the quickest way, is with a cage. This is just a commercially available cage. When your tomato's in the ground, you take the cage, you stick it in the ground so that it's firmly there. You make sure the tomato plant's growing up the middle of it, and voila, you're done. That's all there is to caging a tomato. Several things you have to be careful of. You want to make sure that the opening in the cage is larger than your tomato, so that you can reach in and grab the tomato and pull it out and not have to fight your way down through the foliage and pull it back out through the top. One of the fringe benefits of using a cage is you can use any kitchen wrap and make yourself a miniature greenhouse. Take the wrap, leave a gap of 2 to 3 inches at the bottom, and just wrap it around the cage. And for the sake of time, we're not going to show you the whole wrapping process. So the last thing you do is you leave a flap. The top is open, you put the flap there, and you clip it. And on a bright sunshiny day like today, you would open the top so that hot air could get out, and on a cold day, you would put the flap back over and clip it shut, and you leave it there until the weather, there's no more danger of cold weather harming your plants. Now another method that's been used a long time to support the tomato plant is a stake. The stake, this one has to be rebar, but you can use bamboo, you can use a tree branch, you can use a manufactured stake. Doesn't really matter as long as it's capable of holding up about 20 pounds. Now all you do is you put the stake in the ground, make sure that it's sturdy. You take string. It can be jute, it can be polypropylene, it can be a thick cotton string, but what you don't want to use is nylon string or something like the string from your kid's kite. Those are too small, and as the wind moves the plant back and forth, it will literally saw the stem in half. And all there is to tying is you put a loop around the plant, you carry that loop around the stake, notice that it's loose, and you just tie a knot. You don't cinch it up tight next to it, you just are supporting it. This one's about 7 inches above the ground. About every 7 or 8 inches, you do that again up to the top of the stake. Now, there's another way to support your plants, and you got to have at least 15 to 20 plants to make this worth your while. If you only got 5 or 6 plants, just use a single stake or use a cage. But if you got a bunch of plants, this is the way the commercial people do it. It's called the Florida weave. You take stakes, notice the stakes are not next to the plant, they're between the plants. You tie a knot in the string, little knot, and I'm wearing a glove because you're going to be pulling this string fairly tight, and it's a good way to get a rope burn if you don't wear a glove. And you just walk down the row with the string on one side. When you come to a stake, you just loop around it. Pull it tight, go to the next one, loop around it. Pull it tight. You get to the end, you just loop around it, pull it tight, then you walk back down the other side, doing the same thing. And if you've done it right, you notice that you've got a string on either side of your plant that holds it tight. When you get back down to your first stake again, you pull it tight and you tie a knot. Okay, you want to make sure that the string is on both sides of the plant, because what you're doing is you're building a little passageway for that plant to grow. So after you've done it, go back and make sure that each plant's in between them. You're going to do this at least 3 more times with a determinate type of plant like a celebrity. You're going to do about every 8 inches. You're going to do another one about here, another one about there. And for determinate types, that may be enough. If you're growing an indeterminate type, like a Better Boy or a Big Beef, which makes a 5 or 6 foot tall plant, you may do as many as 5 strings. The advantage of this method is that it's quick. It uses more string, but you only got to get up and down once each row rather than having to kneel down beside each plant and making knots. Well, that's it for supporting tomatoes. Remember, the only reason we're doing it is to keep the fruit off the ground. This has been Gardening Through the Seasons. I'm David Nagel.